Instagram. But
Yeah.
okay, so hopefully,
Hello, world.
hey world, welcome to yet another Storytellers Happy Hour with myself and Teehee. And we actually do have a few other people who are on the invite, but who have some pre-existing commitments. That said, they should be joining us in future iterations. So I'm really, really excited to get them on board.
Heck yeah.
Anyway, hold on one sec. Sorry. I'm fixing our oh no, I'm not. Oh well. Our Instagram live one didn't work right. That's okay. All good. Anyway, so anyone who's watching this and you have no idea what we do, we basically drink. I've got some Modelo Gelato. My favorite is actually the one that's more like a tomato juice with
Mm.
beer, but I just wasn't in the mood for that, so I went for the lime and salt. But anyway, we sit around, we drink, and then Teehee can tell you the more serious part, which is why I'm sure you're actually tuned in.
Yeah, so this is our storytellers happy hour. So what we do is we play like kind of a game, like a storytelling game. Let me get the prop ready. So I have a deck of prompts of different stories from The Moth, if people have heard of that. Um, I feel like these days people might not hear about it as much. Like that's a whole other tangent
Thing.
that we might not go on. But anyway, so right before we got live, I picked two different prompts that I thought were really interesting. So we can
Okay.
do either one or we can do both. The whole purpose, though, is that we don't know what story we're going to tell.
Mm.
So we're going to get this prompt and we're going to think about it for a little bit and then see what we got. The
Okay.
first one, first.
Ooh.
First time you did anything. Um,
Anything.
yeah.
Wait. Now you do realize I have the mind of like I wouldn't say a teenager, but at least mid 20s. So I immediately went to the more illicit version of firsts.
So did I.
Okay.
And then the second one, which I thought was interesting, disguises.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
Also, I mean, it kind of works out because I was just watching Ripley on Netflix.
Excuse me. Uh-huh.
I'm like low key hate watching it because it's really, really slow, but every once in a while it gets interesting. And I'm like, I'm 2 episodes away. So I'm like, might as well stick it out. But I
What is
lost it
it?
about 3 episodes ago. It's a
Oh.
remake of The Talented Mr. Ripley, but it's like a whole season of television.
Oh. Oh, wow. That's like long. Like for they're really dragging it out, huh?
I think it's like 10 episodes, which is probably like 4 episodes too long.
I was gonna
Like
say, no.
I left it playing. I went to go buy the beer for this storytelling night. I had crossed two major intersections and came back and didn't miss anything in the plot.
Oh my
Like,
god.
yeah, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
like
okay.
that's not good.
No.
Oh my. Yeah, no, that's not good. Um,
I can't give it a glowing recommendation.
mm-mm. Nope. Okay, my
But
mind is still just going to illicit areas, and that's probably just because of whatever. Anyway, because I'm drinking beer. Let's just say that. We'll put it that way.
yeah, I mean, I can tell my first story if you, maybe we should just tell our firsts.
Okay, fine. It's fine. But you're going first.
Okay. Okay. So I actually, like most teenage boys probably lied about losing their virginity before they actually did, but I actually
Okay.
lied about keeping my virginity much longer
Oh.
than, yeah, I don't know why that is. Well, maybe the story will make this make sense.
Okay.
Um, so I was 16. My family was all driving down to Atlanta from Davenport, Iowa for the weekend. We were trying to
Wow.
move, and it took like a couple of years of trips back and forth to figure out this move. You
Mhm.
know, like the internet was not the same. My mom had to totally change careers.
Mhm.
So I had to work for whatever reason. I couldn't call off work and I wanted the extra money. And I was always a goody goody. So I'm sure my mom didn't think anything bad was going to happen. And since I was 16, I had a car.
Woo!
Um, so I was like, this is the weekend that I do
Ugh.
this. And
Oh,
this is, let's see here. If I was born in 83, when I was 16, that's what, like 99?
99. Mhm.
1999.
Check you
So,
out, all Princey.
whew. So I got on like an AOL chat room for
No,
gay men.
you didn't.
Yeah, and found this guy who lived one town over miraculously.
Mm.
And he asked me how old I was, and I lied. I said I was 19, even though I was 16.
Well, you know, we do that.
Yeah, it's whatevs. And there was no one home, so it like didn't really matter. I think it was that Friday night.
Mhm.
So they had like left just a couple hours ago, and so like the magic of the internet, I found somebody to like hook up with. I also I did a lot of lying in this because I told the guy that I was 19. I told him that I was like, which he probably should have known because I just offered it. I was like, yeah, I'm not a virgin. I've totally slept with dudes before, like had not. Um,
You did not. Oh my God. You're like, I'm not a virgin.
says the virgin. Like,
Right? Like, that's such a giveaway. Seriously. Like,
I
being
was
all like,
16.
I'm not a virgin. Like, no, no one who's not a virgin says, I'm not a
Exactly.
virgin, right? Like, that's like if you go to a bar and you're like, do you want to see my ID?
Yeah,
Well, no shit, right?
I'm totally over
Obviously.
21.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome.
So, and the other thing that I remember, because this is kind of sweet, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have sex for the first time. So, like, I wore like the nicest boxers that I like
Aw.
had, which were these like dark blue silk boxers. But that meant in the
Ooh.
drive over, I'm like shifting all over.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
And I get to this guy's house. He said he was in his 30s, but when you're 16 and you picture somebody in their 30s, like I'm not sure what I pictured. He just looked much older than
Uh,
what I thought for
well,
somebody who was
love,
like 32.
there's no, I mean, you lied about your age. I wouldn't be shocked if he lied about his.
Yeah, he could have been lying about his. Also,
Yeah.
Iowa winters are rough and they age people. So like maybe
Really? Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Mhm.
So, and it's this white dude. I'm like super, super nervous. I get over to his house. He's got
Was he
like
cute?
kind of cute, bald, in shape, which was
Okay.
like,
That's
yeah,
a
I was like,
pro. I mean,
okay,
that's a plus.
that
Yeah.
is a plus.
Yeah.
Um,
Excuse
he
me.
had tons of like I wouldn't say clutter, but his home was like overstuffed with stuff.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah, got it. Hmm.
And so I was sitting on the couch and he was sitting next to me. He like slides in and put his arm around me and I like tense up and he's like, just relax, just relax. Yeah,
Aww.
yeah. And he was like, we don't have to do anything. And I was like, oh no, 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 I definitely want to like
You're like, no, we're getting it.
we're
Like,
getting it
just
in.
to be clear.
So then we moved into his bedroom
Okay.
and start like I took my shirt off and we started making out and like more clothes come off and like all the sex happens. I
Okay.
noticed that it took me years to like piece this together, but it should have been really obvious in the moment. But
Hmm.
like I did get a little bit distracted like in his room because also he has tons of stuff, but he had tons of dresses and he had a lot of wigs.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and I was like, do I want to? No, I don't want to know. I just am not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to like have sex for the first time. Um,
Yeah.
which I did. It went really well. Didn't last a long time, but like
Meh.
everything,
So
like I
what?
didn't explode. Like no one died. Like nothing bad happened. Um, and he gave me this really nice warm towel to like clean myself up afterwards.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's nice of you. And then like laid down with me for a little bit. Was like asking me questions. I
Aww.
was lying on the spot about like college, being like a freshman in college and stuff like that.
Like,
'Cause
oh yes, I go to more college or
yeah.
like pick some like snooty whatever. Yeah.
Well, it helped that like the childhood neighborhood I grew up in was right across the street from a university called St.
Oh, okay.
Ambrose. So I was
Oh,
just like,
okay.
"Oh, I go to St. Ambrose," and he's like, "Oh, that's a Catholic school." I don't know
And
why I
you're
didn't
like,
think
oh
of that. I'm
shit.
like, "Yeah, it is a Catholic school. Yeah, all that Catholicism, church,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah."
That I jack shit about. Yeah.
And then
God.
that makes me feel weird. So I decide I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get dressed and go. And he seemed like
Yeah.
a little sad.
Aww.
Because the whole thing was like less than 30 minutes, like door to door.
Oh, seriously?
Or yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it was all pretty fast.
That's
And
all
so I get in
good.
the car, I'm driving, the storm hits as I'm driving because he doesn't live in my town, he lives one town over.
Okay.
So I'm like driving on the interstate and it's just like raining like cats and dogs. And like I feel so guilty that I'm like, I lied about being over 18 when I was not over 18. I lied
Okay.
about like school and Catholicism, so all that Jesus guilt is there.
Yeah.
And like lied to my family that I was going to be responsible and just all this. And I was like, and I wiped out and swerved off the highway. Um,
No.
yeah, and stopped in front of, I shit you not, a sign from like a church, like one of those billboard things that are like,
Yeah.
feeling lost? Jesus is there.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yep, just pile it on, pile it on.
Pile it on.
And
Wow.
from then on, I kept lying. So I didn't tell anyone that this encounter had ever happened until I was like 25.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
I was
Okay.
like, sure, I'm a virgin. I think it's important to be a virgin all the way through high school.
What? Who does
Cat.
that?
I said that when I was a teenager. My cat is also being crazy because
Oh, yeah, same. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, oh, you like other people? F you.
Exactly. My cat is showing his feelings right now. You
Oh yeah.
can't see it. But yeah, I lied for a long time that I was a virgin.
Mm.
And then I would just skip over the whole first story of like my first time until I was like in
Excuse
my
me.
late 20s. But that's when I also put it together that this guy was a drag queen. He was
Oh,
bald, so he could get in and out of wigs easily. He had
yeah.
a bunch of like dresses with sequins and stuff like that. I was like, oh.
Oh, got it.
So I lost my virginity to a drag queen.
But I mean, that's actually kind of cool.
It is kind of cool.
I mean, I'm just saying. It's actually really cool, kind of. So, I mean, I would love to know what he was like in drag. You know,
I know. If I had known, I would have at least been like, "What's your drag name?" and try to like follow his career or something.
right? Seriously.
If he was 31 or 32 and I was 16, how much older is he than
So
I?
almost double, like 15 years.
Almost double, and I'm 50, or I mean, I'm not 50, 40. Um, so if there's any 80-year-old drag queens out there who
When
lived in
we went to Masters together, which do you think I'm gonna believe? Like, fight me. All right, fine. I'll go with the 40. Yeah, you're 40, and
I'm
I'm
totally
38.
40.
Yeah,
I don't know where it
totally.
came
Oh my God. So your cat's tail is doing it is so awesome. It's like okay, if you're not gonna pay attention to me, then I am gonna be the center of this effing video.
He's the star of the show, and he knows it.
It's all good. All good.
He went away now.
My
wait.
cat is sitting right there and she's just staring at me like, bitch, I told you I am the only one in your life. I don't know
So,
what you think you are. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm 40. So if there is a 56-year-old white drag queen out there that spent time in Iowa in the late 90s, there's a chance that you took my virginity.
Hey, you know, it works. I mean, it obviously worked because you would.
Yeah, the beginning of a long and semi-successful career.
Oh my, it would just be more fabulous if like she was on like some drag queen show or whatever and was like, "Hey."
I feel like maybe this guy might have originally been blonde because what I vaguely remember of his eyebrows,
Oh,
because
okay.
he didn't have any hair.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
And they were
and
like light.
yeah, he had really light eyebrows and no
Mm.
facial hair,
Mm.
um, which makes sense now.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, this is my first beer of the day. I should have pre-gamed, but he was really, really sweet.
Mm.
You could tell I was super nervous.
Mm.
We went as like we went at my pace. Um,
Aw.
I think too, looking back, he probably should have known I was under
It
18.
sounds like he knew you were at least a virgin. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
yeah. It sounds like he definitely he'd calcs that one.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like definitely was somebody who was like never had sex with a guy before. I was like that nervous. Um,
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
but I don't know. I had a deep voice at 16, but
Mm.
I don't know. I feel like I see teenagers today and I'm like, I don't know that like I would have been like, oh, he said he was 19. I'm like, no, that motherfucker looks 15. Like,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
are
yeah.
15.
Well, I mean, and admittedly though, I know quite a few men who when you look at their photos from when they were like they're like, "Oh, I was 14 then." I'm like, "Jesus Christ." Like you look like you're like 20 something. Like no wonder you got into so much crap. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
cuz you could get away with it and you knew it at some level, you know? Otherwise you
Yeah.
wouldn't have done it, but
Exactly.
mm.
Exactly.
Okay, so now okay, so I told part of the story before, and I believe it or not, I had people ping me after, and they were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you told that." So, okay, so when I was a teenager, um, so among my so all my almost all my friends were in the entertainment industry in some capacity, unless I went to like high school with them. And then I went to a college prep school. Our graduating class was 29. Like, I'm not kidding. And it was like less than, I think, nine of them were guys. So that kind of gives you some, context. So all like my friends were all just like stunningly gorgeous, like very like when they walked into a room, they just basically took over the room. And so I was the nerd ball, right? So like someone would say something ridiculous and I'm the one who would say, "Is that true? Cuz I don't know." Right? Like and because I was so like I wouldn't say literal, but I was such um like I was the kid that whenever I don't know if your school system did this, like that you had to take a test in the beginning of the year to see where you placed. And we had to do that from we did that elementary school all the way up through junior high, and then I went into high school. And I always placed in the top 99 ninth percentile, right? So then they put me in all the academically talented, whatever, right? So
Mhm.
I was obviously the complete and utter nerdball of like all of my friends. And I never had a boyfriend until I was like 17 and a half, something like that. And I got to tell you, all my friends by then, I mean, they had boyfriends at like 12, 13, right? And lost their virginity long, 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 long before I even had my first kiss, right? So being a teenager and being a nerd ball, like you're a nerd and it's like, well, kind of go big or go home, right? Okay, fine. I'm like almost 18 years old and I just thought, well, you know what? Well, I need to get a boyfriend because, well, it's not like I didn't like guys because, dur. But it was more just like, because I don't know how to explain this any better than like, if all of your friends are gorgeous, like, I mean, like model gorgeous or like Playboy bunny gorgeous, and you're not, the likelihood of all of you that you're the one that's going to get a boyfriend when you all hang out together is pretty low. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I feel like it seems like that. I like my creepy guy brain in the gay world. If there's a group of guys that are all like model hot and there's the one average looking guy, that's the guy I'm hitting on.
But but that's the smart play because the average looking guy, he's probably safer and actually is probably more interesting. And he's going to be kind of relatively normal. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
And he's gonna put out because he's probably a little insecure.
well, yeah. I mean, especially because he's hanging out with all these people who are like crazy hot, you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean, I just hit a point where, I mean, I still remember this. Like, my high school had these, like, almost like hangout rooms, and all the girls were talking about their boyfriends and how they were, and all that shit. And I was like, God damn, like, I can't even, excuse me, get a kiss, right? Like, I can't get, there's Zippo. But me and some of my friends used to hang out at, like these different, so there were some rock clubs in Philly that they were a combination of underage and overage. And so, and it, like, you'd have to get into the over 21, you had to flash your ID, blah, blah, blah. But where the real action happened was in the parking lot, as is true for honestly most, if not all, clubs.
Yeah,
So,
I have some comments.
yeah. So, we would go and we would hang out, and I'd say 80% of the time, we would just hang out in the parking lot. Like, we never actually went into the actual club. We would just hang out in the parking lot. And by the way, that's also how we would get booze because these guys would show up and they'd have all this booze, and you'd just hang out. And by default, because you were there, they would, pass along whatever they had. And at the time, I was really into Guns N' Roses. So anyone who's watching and has no idea what I'm talking about, just Google search Guns N' Roses. And because I was like, I honestly, I was a music nerd in general, but I was on this TV show, and where you had to kind of, you didn't have to have a persona, but my persona was one of, like, I was the rock chick, right? So, in alignment with that persona, I was into Guns N' Roses, and I preferred Slash out of all of them. So Slash was, he was the bass player, right? I'm pretty sure he
Yeah,
was the bass player.
the bass player is always hot.
Right? For real. Like, I never went
Always.
for the lead singer. I always went for the bass player or the drummer. And if my husband's watching this, you can murder me later. So, because my husband, guys, is a drummer and a lead singer and a music producer. So, anyway, so I always thought it was the drummer or the bassist who was hot. So, we're hanging out, and there's this one guy who is like the six, I don't think Slash was that tall, like the real Slash. So this guy, he was like 6'4", I want to say, and he looked like Slash. I mean, he had the hair, and Slash had and so he comes over and he like offers me a beer or something, and so we start talking, and he was like, "Hey, why don't we come over here?" And we go behind the club, and we basically just make out, right? And I'm just thrilled because I'm like, "Holy crap, actually somebody wants to actually, kiss me. This is a miracle." Right? So we start talking and all this stuff, and I never lied about my age. I more so felt ashamed at the fact that like every single person I knew, like boy or girl, had lost their virginity. I want to say before 16, if not
Almost
that.
everybody I knew lost their virginity before me.
Oh yeah, and everyone I knew had had a boyfriend or girlfriend by the time they were like 13 or 14. So I was like, the super nerd ball, right? Like here I am almost 18, and this is the first time I'm even getting kissed. So so anyway, so we exchange phone numbers and we start going out, blah blah blah. And I had passed my 18th year, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. And I don't remember how this came about, but somehow we ended up in what I lovingly call a no-tell motel. And some places call this a roach motel, and I mean there are tons of nicknames for it, but it's basically like a motel they'll actually rent the room on an hourly basis. So we end up there, and needless to say, so I consider this my first time because it's the first time I had penetration.
Okay.
Okay.
Same with me
Um
in my story. That was my.
yeah. So we penetrated, and at one point he brings out an engagement ring, and it's this little tiny teeny weeny, like and the way he's talking, I don't know how to explain this, but I was like, how many times have you been engaged? And he said something ridiculous like 10 times. And I went, what? And in the conversation, it turns out like he grew up like uber Catholic. So in his mind, in order, like, you weren't supposed to have sex unless you were at least engaged, right? So I don't remember how I said it. I tried to be very polite, but I just basically was kind of like, "Thank you so much, but I don't think this is smart." Like, like I don't think we should get engaged or whatever, right? Which, obviously killed the moment. Although a little side comment. So, okay, he was actually, I think he was 6'7". For some reason, I tend to attract men who are very well endowed. Let's just put it that way. So imagine that it's your first time ever, 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 ever and the person happens to be super well endowed. So let's just say he was proportional. Does that like, yeah, so he was
Yeah,
like 6'7".
because
Yeah,
6'7". He was proportional to 6'7".
exactly. So, and I'm 5'7". So,
5, 6, 7, 8.
right? So, yeah. So that was, I mean, I would say it was traumatic, but it wasn't traumatic because part of me, like, I mean, I knew what to, like, I kind of figured it out. Um, but yeah, so that was my first. And what's really funny is, excuse me, like when we were hanging out in the parking lot area, like his exes would show up. And I guess he liked like Catholic school girls
His
normally.
ex fiancés.
Yeah, yeah. And they were like, it was like one of those like, "Oh, I really would love to talk." And, so they would like talk or whatever. And he would basically tell them to go away, right? Like, I mean, while we were together. But I just thought it was interesting, I guess you could say, that like they would just sort of randomly, and they would look pissed off that he was like uh there with me, and I was just like, okay.
Is at a
So
moment where they were emotionally and probably physically vulnerable, this guy asked them to marry them just to have sex and then
it
moved
could
on and
be,
asked somebody else. It feels like such an unsustainable practice with your
right?
sexual partners. Like,
I mean, I don't know if he like, I mean, obviously, all right, for real. Someone who's that attractive, right? And by the way, he was also, yeah, he was a drummer. He wasn't a bass player. He was a drummer. Um he, I'm positive he dated more than, 10, 11, you know. I would be shocked if he hadn't already been with like 50 people. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like um
Yeah, I don't think that he was asking every single partner to marry them.
no, but I think it was a significant number.
And he liked to hang out in the parking lot of the mixed stage club because, like, that is just a
Mhm.
whole ass recipe for men to date underage women. Like,
Right? Well, for any kinda, like, underagey thing, because I
yeah,
mean, I did have friends who, like, they would hook up with a guy and then they'd go somewhere and then, like, come back, and they were like, "All good, I'm happy," right?
yeah, which is to
So
me wild that that's like teenage girls because like gay men definitely have shit like that, but like
mhm.
we're older, we're gay men. So like we're allowed to be promiscuous in ways that I think society really doesn't let women be promiscuous.
Well, I mean, honestly, like, there's no way. I mean, it's interesting because there's no way that, like, my friends I just saw a cat, but that was awesome. Um, like, there's no way their family knew. Do you know what I mean? Like, this wasn't
Mhm.
like they advertised it, and they didn't go around saying like, "Hey, I'm 15, I'm 16, I'm getting it," you know?
Yeah, they were
Um,
doing my shtick.
yeah, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I totally go to community college.
yeah, sure, why not? Whatever you want. Um, I mean, I really was more of just like um, like a reinforcement of someone's an not only sexuality, but, like, their attractiveness, you
Mhm.
know? 'Cause a lot of my friends were actually they were going through a lot of trauma at home, and, anyone who's been through, or is going through a lot of trauma, I mean, oftentimes, you're just trying to find places for positive reinforcement,
Yeah,
and
any
and
way you can find it.
anywhere you can find it, and oftentimes that will translate to, sexual partners, you know? I mean, I'm just saying.
Speaking from experience, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I had one friend, we actually did an intervention. So her mother was dying of cancer, like, no joke. And, um, oh my god, like, Teehee, girly, I'm still blown away by the number of men she was with, because it was almost like every time we hung out, she'd find somebody. And boy, was she thrilled every single time. I mean, and she didn't care if they exchanged phone numbers. She was just like, "Woo!"
I had a phase where like I didn't care if I even found the person attractive. Like I was just
Mm,
like, I want to have sex. And like this person was. It took me a long time too to realize like this is how I see it because like I had to learn that I could have standards. Because like
uh,
for the longest, I'm like, oh, that person wants to have sex with me. Okay, like
yeah, let's do it. Right.
let's do it. Like the idea that I could say no
Mhm.
was like revolutionary. And I was like, maybe like 26 years old.
Wow. But you know what? I mean, but sometimes that's what it's like. It takes you to hit a point where, I mean, like, and this is so funny. Like, it's like where my corporate background comes in. Excuse me, because I started going into dates with like, okay, what do I want out of this? Like, what is my objective?
Mhm.
And, if I want a friendship, cool. Like, if I want a relationship, cool. If I just want some nookie, cool. Right. But
Yeah.
I needed to know within myself what I wanted and marry that to whatever was, happened. So, I mean, because there were guys that I went on dates with that we had zero chemistry, although I thought they were absolutely gorgeous. Right. But for whatever reason, there was no sexual, you know, attraction. And it was just like, oh well, okay, but I had to figure out what I needed going into it.
Mhm. Yeah, I used to do this thing where like, and then thankfully I've stopped it. So I'm like purposely a difficult person to date on purpose. Because I was way too easy for too long. But like when especially in New York, like if I was on a first date with somebody and it wasn't working out,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, how do I deliver the best night possible for this guy? Like, like,
Oh,
what do you
okay.
want to do? Do you want to walk the Brooklyn Bridge? Do you like, let's go on an adventure together? And I'm gonna make sure you get home okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like, we're
yeah,
not gonna have a second date, but like,
yeah. But
literally,
we'll have fun.
I will try to pull out all the stops to make sure you have like a night to remember. And then I'm like,
Aw.
now please go away. It's terrible dating practice because they don't ever go away. They
No,
like
no.
they hit you up. They like want that high again. You're like, damn it! I thought I.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works, love. Nope.
No. So my new dating strategy is just to be kind of terrible.
And how is that going?
Great.
Oh my
Totally.
God.
I've had a couple of cab drivers propose to me.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I'm married, but I want to say in the last couple of years, I've had guys who either I like worked with or used to hang out with or whatever. I'm sure they were completely trashed at the time, but they were like, "Oh my God, I had the world's biggest crush on you. I was totally in love with you, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Dude, you could have told me at the time because like I had no damn idea." But anyway.
I so and yeah, just gonna say. So recently, I told somebody that there's this guy in town, and he was here for a while, and then he had to go elsewhere in Mexico, I think, to deal with some family issues. He was gone for like a year,
Oh
and
wow.
then
Okay.
he's back, and I was like, "Oh, hey, it's great to see you." We're like talking and drinking at the bar, and I was like, "You know what? Like, I had like a huge crush on you." And I was like, "But you were always with someone else, so I had thought that you guys were dating." And he was like, "No, no,
Right.
no, we're just best friends." And I'm like, I know that now because you left and I asked that person.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like, oh, I'm so sorry your boyfriend left. And they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. So, and that didn't actually get me very far at
Mm.
all. And yeah. So I don't think that's gonna go anywhere.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. I told somebody I was talking to this guy at the bar last night who's a little obnoxious.
Oh,
Um, But I was like, you know what? He seems kind of cute in a really like rough, like grew up in the hood,
okay.
south side of Chicago way. Uh, so
Okay.
I was like, yo, I'm just gonna shoot my shot. Like, I think you're super attractive. Like,
Go
what
for it,
kind of
man.
guys are you attracted to? And he goes on to describe a type and then pointing out everyone at the bar who is that type, and that type is not me.
Oh
And I was
my.
like, you know what? Okay,
It's like, I'm
cool.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he points to all these twinks, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not a twink. Fine.
What's a
But
twink?
then,
Is that like
huh?
a teeny what's a twink?
Skinny. A
Oh,
twink is
okay.
like a skinny, usually young, but emphasis on skinny and thin gay
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
And I'm
no, no,
like,
no.
that's not me. And I was like, you know what? No hard feelings. Glad I
All good.
asked. We'll
Yeah,
clear
yeah.
this up. And so then I move on to talk to my other friends who are at the bar. But
Okay.
he keeps coming back in to jump into conversation. And then he kept being like really flirty. And I was
But
I
you
was
like
like,
twinks.
I know, I was like, but you like twinks. What are you doing fucking talking to me still?
Right,
Like,
right.
he was in the middle of some story, and I was like, that was another thing. This is what I find is like, to me, now that I'm 40 and still single, the biggest thing that I'm attracted to is someone who can tell a good story at a bar. Like, if
Oh,
you get me
yeah.
into the story, and then I'm like, then I'm suddenly
Totally fair.
like, oh, I just look at their whole physicality totally
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but it is.
Well, no, I
Um,
mean, that's like oh, this is gonna sound completely awful. Like, I love men who are, like, super intelligent and, like, uh like the guy who was, like, a Slash replica. It wasn't that he wasn't smart, but he wasn't, like, you know and, like, my husband also so I went to Morristown Friends, which is, like, this really well known in the tri-state area, college prep well, anyway, whatever, private school. And, he also went to a friend's school. So, it was like, the minute we even started talking even as friends, it was like you're talking to someone who actually understands what you're saying versus where you feel like you have to keep explaining, like, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Or you have to, like, dumb down the terminology that you typically would use, you know? And
Mhm.
so, like, no, I totally understand what you're saying because there's, like, where you feel like, "Okay, excuse me, I can be myself, and this is part of me," right? Like, being a storyteller is part of me.
Yeah.
And so, this will actually this exchange will work, you know?
Yeah, it's even like on my dating profiles, I'm like, my ideal of a perfect first date is just like swapping really good, interesting, funny stories over some beers. Like that's the best.
Like, that's
But
it. Oh my god, yeah. Totally.
yeah, I don't know. I woke up today though feeling weird about this guy, and he's a tourist, so he's gone. He's not, and he's never coming back here.
Oh.
But when he told me he was only interested in twinks, and then I stopped paying attention to him, he just like really needed my attention from there on out. And I'm like,
Like, really? Come on.
which is weird, and it tracks because a lot of like incredibly hot people, I think if you just like ignore them, they like eat out of the palm of your hand. Um,
I could see that.
it's happened a lot to me down here, and it's like
Mm.
because like I've also learned that like traditionally stereotypically attractive dude with like the six pack and he's like like super thin and whatever, like I don't think that that's attractive, like that's not
Mm-mm.
my type at all. So I'm just like, that person's there and I'm like whatever,
Mhm.
and then they get all like flustered because they're used to everyone fawning over them, and they're like, why isn't this guy? And I'm like, dating in your 40s is weird.
Oh, yeah. No, I could totally see that. I could
Yeah.
totally see that. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So should we do the second one? What do you think? All right.
Disguises. Yeah. Also, let me grab some beer real quick.
Okay, go. Okay, so anyone who is watching while Teehee's getting his beer, so I am actually going to be at the LA Times Festival of Books on Sunday of this week. Actually, it's going to be me, Joelle, who's one of our fabulous people behind the scenes. We're going to be giving away a whole bunch of stuff. And we're also going to be at the American Library Association's conference in June. And we're going to be a bunch of whole other places, either giving away or signing or whatevsky books. So check us out. And don't forget, we always have our weekly Run Wild with Us, Ask Us Anything, which just means you can ask us whatever the hell you want. And by the way, if you want to ask us how'd you lose your virginity, you can do that because who cares, right? We can always say no.
Yeah.
Um, and don't forget, we are here, at least Teehee and I are here monthly. And admittedly, usually I either have a gin or some wine, but for whatever reason this week I was like, you know what? I think I just want some beer. So anyway, and Teehee and I will tell you tall tales, and you get to guess whether they're real or not. And or you can hope,
It's like
you can
spoiler
sit
alert.
there,
They're
right?
all
Like,
real.
and we do actually invite other people to join us. I think we just kind of terrify them, so they just like don't come, and it's fine.
The idea of like having to tell a story based on a prompt that you have no idea what it is, I think is intimidating to most people.
Oh yeah, I agree. And they'll come up with all kinds of weird like reasons why they can't make it, and it's like, you know what? I don't care. We're just gonna do it anyway.
And
So
like the prompts are good, they're super broad. So
they
like,
really are.
to me, I think they help me.
Mm-hmm.
But
And because it's like I think about things that I haven't thought about in a long time. So it's like, oh, yeah, you know what? That's cool.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so disguises. I'm trying to think of stories about disguises. I don't think I've really worn a lot of disguises, but I have. Okay, I think I know it.
Does it have to be me personally, or can it be like, okay? Because like I've had friends who were, I mean, they realized later in life that they were lesbian, and they could really pass for a more effeminate male. Um, not intentionally. Like it wasn't like I'm gonna pass for a male. It was just like they just felt more comfortable in, more stylistically male clothes. So wow. Okay, disguises.
So I guess I don't know if I've told this story before. Um, but yeah, fuck it. I'm just gonna tell it. So this was also when I was a teenager. My family was visiting Atlanta. My sister she graduated from Spelman,
Oh,
um,
cool.
and went to grad school at Howard. She's very accomplished. And
Obviously.
we were moving her from Atlanta to DC. I think I
Hmm.
was like 17. I
Wow.
had to be like 17.
Okay.
And we're at the Smithsonian,
Hmm.
and I'm walking around the Smithsonian Museum with my younger sister.
Hmm.
And like I'm a nerd. I love museums. Like I'm like, you could drop me off at the Smithsonian
And
at
I'm good.
9 a.m. and pick me up at 5. I'm good.
Totally. And if you drop me off and then you like let me like, if anyone actually let me buy whatever I wanted from the gift shop, like I would buy like half of everything, like for real. Like
Mhm,
you want to give me a
mhm.
mini Monet, I'm all over it. A mini
Yeah,
Picasso, game
yep.
on. Yeah. So
I
anyway,
was like, I was in nerd heaven because the Smithsonian has so many museums,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so I'm like, I got the whole day. I'm there. My sister's with me, and we're looking at things. I think we were at the like space and aeronautics or whatever,
Oh,
which
cool.
is like fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm like learning a whole bunch of stuff, and people like somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Like, I'm really sorry. Can I get your autograph?" And I was like, "What?"
What?
And he pulls out a sheet of paper, like a little notebook, and I'm like, "Sure." And I just like scribble a line, and he's like, "Thank you so much."
You're like, I have no idea what I just did. Anyway.
Yeah, I was like, "That's random." And he runs off, and then like a few minutes later, like his friends come up, and they
Mhm.
also want an autograph, and then someone wants a picture, and I'm like,
Huh?
what? And like, we're just gonna keep going. Then like more and more people, but then all of a sudden there was a big tourist group of like Chinese tourists or like Asian tourists at least. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
stereotype, but they spoke very little English,
Yeah.
and they saw me and they just rushed.
Went for it. Okay.
Went for it, snapping pictures. I'm signing things, like literally
Yeah.
kissing babies. And that's when they start telling me,
Kissing babies. I'm sorry.
and that's when they start telling me, like, do magic, do magic. And I'm like, what?
What?
What? Like,
All right, give it up. Who did they think you were?
I'll get to that. So
Okay, all right, I'm fine.
I'm starting to get scared. My little sister is starting to get scared. The Smithsonian security comes up and they're like, "Sir, please come with us." And I was like, "Well, thank you, because it's the mob and like I want to get away from the mob." We go
Yeah.
out through this back exit so that we're on the lawn. And they were
Okay.
like, "In the future, Mr. Blaine, if you want to make a public appearance at the Smithsonian, please let us know ahead of time." And I was like, "I'm really
What?
sorry, but also,
I'm not Mr.
who's
Blaine.
who's Mr. Blaine?" Like, I had never heard of this. Like, and they're like, "David Blaine, like you're David Blaine," and I'm like, "No, I'm not David Blaine."
Oh my god.
So then I
Oh
have
my
to.
god, oh my god, oh my god.
And my sister doesn't know who David Blaine is, and like I didn't have like I was a teenager. I didn't have this massive beard. So we like somehow find our family, and we're like, we have to go. And like Yvette was like, Te almost got kicked out of the Smithsonian. And I was like, I didn't get kicked out. Like I was
Aw.
escorted out by security. There's a difference.
There is a difference. They didn't kick you out. They were actually trying to protect you because they were like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, because I was getting mobbed. And then we make it back to the hotel at night because we went for dinner and stuff like that. We're back in the hotel at night, and then the local news comes on, and they're like, like famous mysterious magician David Blaine made him an appearance at
No.
the Smithsonian, and I was like, and they show like his like stock photo picture of him, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
All
damn it,
right.
I can
I'm
see
for
it.
real. I'm looking this up. David Blaine. I could kind of see it. I mean,
Maybe type in like David Blaine from like 2001. Let me also type that.
all right, all right. 2000. Oops, sorry. 2001. David Blaine.
Let's
I
see.
mean, kind of.
Kind of.
I mean, are they just not used to non-white people or something? Cuz
I guess so. It was also at the time, because I was a teenager, I didn't have a lot of this facial hair. And I think we were mostly living in Iowa at the time. So my skin was a lot paler. So like
okay.
I look very different from him now, but at the
Okay.
time I looked more like him.
Kinda. I
Kind
mean,
of.
kinda.
I would
You were
go
in
on to be.
Iowa though, right? I
No,
mean,
we were in Washington, D.C.
oh yeah, no, that's not right. Cause you don't.
But for like the next like year and a half, I got mistaken for David Blaine like 4 more times. I got mistaken for him in Atlanta
Wow.
twice.
Okay.
There was a new mall that got opened in like some Atlanta suburb, and I was there and I was walking around and I noticed people started taking pictures of me.
Mm.
And then as I'm like, further hanging out and running to friends from high school, they're like, I hear David Blaine is at the mall for the opening of the mall. And I'm like, it's not David Blaine, it's me. And it's me. The other scary one was in Tennessee on a Greyhound bus. We were stopped at this rest area,
Mm.
and David Blaine had written this memoir because I had started following him since I was getting confused for him. He had written this memoir, and there were clues to where he hid 50,000 US dollars somewhere in the United States.
Oh my god.
Um, and it's late at night. I'm taking a Greyhound bus from Nashville
And you're like, let's
to
bring it.
Orlando. Yeah.
Where's the moolah?
And I'm like, I think I'm like 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, I'm smoking a cigarette outside of the rest area. This guy who was on the bus like comes up to me and he's like, it's got to be nearby, right? Like, tell me where the money is. And I'm like, I'm sorry,
What?
what?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
And he's like, you're David Blaine. You know where you hid your money. It's got to be somewhere here, right? It's in this county. Like, tell me. It's terrifying,
Wow.
absolutely terrifying for somebody to think that where $50,000 in cash is.
Right? Because
You
you're
try to
like,
say
I
like,
can use it.
yeah, I was like, dude, it's not. I'm not David Blaine. I don't know where this money is. And he was like, that sounds like something David Blaine would say. And I was like, actually, that sounds like something anyone would say.
Yeah, kind of. Exactly. Especially if you don't know where the money is. Like,
Exactly.
Wow.
Terrifying. I think that's when I started growing out a beard because I used to only have a mustache.
Yeah, yeah. That's true.
And no one told me. No one told me.
Oh. Well, all right,
that
so
it
my
looked bad.
story is not nearly as cool. I'm just gonna put that out there. It is not nearly as cool. Um, so my high school used to have a a Halloween party, like a Halloween dance party. So you had to get, like get dressed up, whatever, right? And so I brought my best friend at the time, and there was this one guy who was like a grade above me. She was like one grade below me, and he was one grade above me. I think this was like my freshman or sophomore year or something like that. And he was dressed like Prince, and she loved Prince. I mean, like loved Prince. But I mean, he was naturally short, so he even had the platform heels going on, right? And so they hook up and they start dating. And I mean, they're dating for a long time. I mean, like I was like, they must really be into each other, right? Because when you're in high school, dating more than like a year is that's eternity, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say they dated at least a year and a half, something like that. And one day she called, like we're talking on the phone, and she's like, "I need to ask you a favor." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Can you break up with Ron for me?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" She's like, "Well, I mean, he's like nice and all, but I'm not really all that into him, and I don't know how to break it to him. So, could you break up for him with him for me?" Okay, Teehee, the number of friends I have who did this, I mean, you might be shocked, where they were like, "I can't do this, Lisa. Would you do it for me?" Like, I think I ended up breaking up with like friends' boyfriends at least a half dozen, if not a dozen times,
Damn.
right? And it was just because I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, what do I do, right? And
You should have charged money for it. You're like,
for
of course I
real,
can do it. That'll be $100.
I mean, at the time, I was like, I don't know any better. I guess so. This poor guy, oh my God, when I called him to tell him, I mean, it was as if I just ripped his heart out of his chest and left him on the floor. He was so, I mean, boy, at least he thought he was deeply in love. Now, mind you, this was quite a while ago. I'm not going to tell you how long, but we'll say I'm 42 if Teehee's 40. I'm going to just put it there.
I swear to
And
God. What?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So it was at least, what, 24 years ago, 25, actually 26 years ago. Yeah. Wow. And I actually don't remember ever seeing this poor child again. And again, I went to a college prep school. So, and my graduating class was 29, which was actually unusually small. It was about half the size of most of the graduating classes, but I don't actually remember ever seeing him after that. So, I don't know if that's just like a memory erase or if he like dropped out. Like I seriously don't. I don't know.
Or maybe he withdrew socially so much that like he just
Yeah,
doesn't exist in people's memories anymore.
that could be totally. But yeah, so and she later on, I'd say like a couple of years later, she did the same thing. Like, can you break up with Bobby for me? And I was like, no, hell no. You need to freaking do this for yourself. I'm not doing this for you.
Did so they knew like you weren't like impersonating them, right? You're like, hi, it's so and so's friend, Lisa.
Yeah.
So she wants me to relay this to you. Okay.
Yeah, like we were mutual friends,
Okay.
and in because we all hung out in the same social circles. And mind you, now it wasn't just her. Like I had multiple friends who did this, where it was like, okay. I mean, and actually the same thing. Like I had friends' parents who were like, "You are the only friend she has who's got some common sense. So I need you to look out for her because like she's very good at getting into trouble." And every time I was like, "Why am I sitting here? Like how did I get here? Shouldn't they be held accountable for their own mess? Like how am I the one that's suddenly like, all right, yes, of course, I'll make sure she, you know, acts like she's got some sense. Like, no, no, no. Like, how did I get here?"
Well, and then I was like the goody two shoes kid in high school for a lot of my friends, where they're like, "Oh, it's okay if you're out late with Teehee because he's a good kid," and I was like, "I was not a good kid. I just hid things well."
There you go. Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. Was I a good kid? I mean, I was just a nerd. Like it wasn't like I was good or bad. Like I just couldn't get any, so I didn't. Like that was it.
I was mostly a good kid. I didn't have a lot of sex. I didn't do a lot of partying. I drank a
Mm-mm,
lot more than I think my family would be surprised to know about.
mm.
And definitely my school, because I was president of the drug-free youth group, but I was pretty drunk every day in high school. Um,
Wow. Okay, that's impressive.
yep. Shout out to like the friends who would come to school with the thermos full of like Gatorade and vodka, and
Wow. You just got it.
we just got in real deep at like 7:30 in the morning.
Damn. Yeah, no, I didn't do any of
Yeah.
that. I didn't do
But
I
no
mean,
one suspected us because we were the nerds. They were like,
right. Well, that's
they're
true.
not the cool kids. You got to worry about the cool kids. They're going to end up pregnant before they graduate. We're like
All right.
literally doing the most, and no one thought anything.
Now admit so but I mean like I was getting to over 21 clubs when I was like 16, 17, something like that. But it was only because of who I was with, because I had so many friends who were over 21 that they just didn't question it, you know.
Mhm.
But I didn't actually do anything. Like I was never into drugs. I never like I was just hanging out. I mean, I would drink, but at times, but it wasn't like because honestly, like cheap booze, I don't. And most of these clubs, I mean, they pretty much just, and we were too poor for me to get anything other than cheap booze. So,
Yeah. I mean, once I found gay bars, which was before I turned 21, I never
mm,
had a problem getting in. And
oh
like
no,
looking back, like they had to know I was under 21. But I was just like a young gay guy.
yeah, they're like
Yeah.
whatever.
Just let's throw him to the wolves. I didn't even know how much drinks cost until I was like 26 and I was no longer young and had to start paying for my own alcohol. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Oh my god! So you had enough guys who were like paying for your booze that you had no idea?
And wouldn't even know them. I
Wow.
would just walk into a gay bar and sit down and like wait. And then the bartender is like, that gentleman would like to buy you a drink. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I used to be hot.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I never had any of that. I would be the friend, like we would go to a bar and a guy would get so aggressively like into one of my friends. Like I'm the one who I would jump in between. I'm like, you don't have a right to talk to her that way, so you need to get your ass gone now. And the
Yep.
guy would be like, ooh, right? And but like everybody at the club would know who we were, right? So they were like, "No, Lisa's got it. It's all good. You need to get your ass out."
Maybe next month, should we just tell bar stories?
We could totally just tell bar stories. I'll just have to like remind myself.
Yeah.
It's been a
I'll make a
while.
reminder. I'll make a reminder.
Okay.
Because,
Okay.
like, I'm sure we have epic bar stories. But no, I try to teach this one guy who was like I was 22 and he was 24, but he was like dipping his toe into coming out of the closet. So I
Oh,
was
I
like,
see.
all right, let's go to the gay bar. And he's like, oh, every time we go out, because we would go out in a co-ed group of people, and
Mhm.
they're like, T always is drunk, but you're the broke one. Like, how does that happen? And I was like, just watch me. So we go to this gay bar in Orlando, and I sit at the bar. I don't
Oh,
slouch. I just sit and just kind of
dude,
like
that's not hard. Not in
smile to
Orlando.
myself and like say hi to people who I make eye contact with. Say hello to the bartender.
Mhm.
Hi, how's it going? Hey, hey. And then they'd be like, "Oh, this gentleman would like to buy you a drink," and they're like, "Whoa!"
Yep.
So
Yep.
I won't say this guy's name, or maybe I'll make up a fake name.
Make up a fake name.
Alexander.
That works.
Alexander.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I can totally do this."
Oh my god.
He sits with this like super pristine posture and this giant smile. We're like,
Like, it's a little too much, man. Like, it's the smile. Like, you need to be more casual about it. Not like, "Yo, I'm here. Give me some booze."
less excited. I was like trying to channel your like inner Carrie Bradshaw because it was the early 2000s and it wasn't problematic at the time. But he
Wow.
was so hetero. He was like, "Who's Carrie Bradshaw?" And I was like,
Woo.
"You're gonna need a
No,
lot of work."
right? For real. For real. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Bar stories.
Oh yeah, we're totally doing bar stories. I have some ones that I was like, yeah, they were so epic that I was, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I gotta remember some because, like, well, and I was like bar hopping. I first started going to bars in Orlando and then
Mhm.
Savannah, Atlanta, Macon, like the South, Texas, New York, LA. But I've also been bar hopping in like Portland,
Ew.
Seattle, Reno, um, and now Mexico City, and Puerto Vallarta, and
Well,
Bogota, and Cartagena.
but I mean, like the Puerto Vallarta, Mexico City, I could totally see. The Portland, I'm kind of like, meh, nyeh, meh, nah.
Yeah, because I have friends that live in Portland, so I've been there and done the
Got
bar
it.
hopping.
No.
I love that my friends love Portland.
Oh my god, that was fucking awesome. Like, it's like, I love you, my love, but uh-uh. Yeah, yeah.
Not for me.
That's
Um,
awesome. All right.
yeah, well, real quick story. My favorite thing to do while bar hopping in Portland is to reject white men's advances.
Ooh, that's fun.
So much fun. And they are so surprised. They like come up and like this guy gave me a beanie hat and a scarf, and he just like would not leave me alone. I'm like, dude,
Oh
I'm not
my.
interested. And I was with my friend Lesson, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hit on you in front of your boyfriend." I'm like, "That's not my boyfriend. That's my
But
best friend." And
it just
he's
means
like,
I'm still not interested.
and he was like, "So you are single?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be single over here, and you're gonna be single over there. I will keep the clothes you gave me and all the drinks you bought me, but you're gonna be over."
Oh my god. 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 I
And
may
he
love
was
this
like,
too much.
mind blown. He was like, "Norm." He's like, "I really go for like black guys. They normally like really like me, but
And
you
you're
don't
like,
like me." And I was like,
no.
"I don't." Surprise.
Wow. Oh my god. I love this so. I hate to admit it, like it took me until I'm gonna say I was in my like early 30s to realize like I'm gorgeous. And
You
at
are
that point,
gorgeous.
oh, well, thank you. And at that point, it was like, okay. Then it just became a like if I dated a guy and he was like, you could lose 5 pounds, I'm like, and you can leave. like boom. Cuz I actually I briefly dated one of my college professors from my mass MBA program who was like really super cute, blah blah blah. And like we were making out or whatever, and at the end he was like, I really like you, but you could lose like I don't know, 5 pounds and you'd be perfect. And I was like, whoo, yeah, you know what? Gotta go. See
Look at the
ya.
time. I think I gotta shampoo my hair. A
Right?
fire alarm. Mom
Like
dead.
I'm
Bye.
out. I'm out. So, and I was so proud, like as we like in the last like decade, how there's been so much more acceptance of women who actually have bodies. Because I mean, I grew up in the time of Twiggy where like that was just not acceptable. Like you needed to eat like a pea every day and
Yeah.
that's it. Like you weren't allowed to have curves, you weren't allowed to have boobs. You had to be like super duper skinny. And I'm not built that way. Like it's just not.
Me
Yeah.
neither. And I don't
So,
want to be built that way.
mm-mm.
And like, I also don't want to be super muscly. Like, I know I'm like, I have a dad bod, and I worked hard for my dad bod. Like, me
But
and the dad bod have been together for a while. I'm not giving it up.
but like I love my body. Like like I worked hard for this body. Like I work out every day. So, but I don't think you should like limit your life because someone else goes, "Oh, you should lose 5 pounds." It's like, no, I enjoy food, not to some crazy way or whatever, but you need to enjoy your life in whatever way that you
Exactly.
deem you want to. So go do it.
Exactly. I also recently someone told me this, which is also a red flag. So I'm like, that
Meh.
person's not dateable. But
Mm.
he was like, "You're really, really handsome. I'm really attracted to you, but you're kind of bigger." And like the gay society of Puerto Vallarta is like all about young and thin. And he's like, "What would
Oh,
people say if we were together?" And I was like, "I guess we'll never find out
right? No, for
because we're
real.
never gonna be together."
No, no. I mean, that's the right answer because it's like, look, dude, when I look at my life and I look at how my looks have changed over the years, and it's true for anybody, right? Like sitting here and saying, well, what would people think about? You know what? Then that means that you need to go away because,
Basically, I was. It's the worst kind of red flag. I'm like, one, it shows that you care way too much about what other people think,
yep,
but also other people don't think these things,
no, they
right?
don't. They
So it's
don't
like,
care.
it's really what's in your
Mm,
head telling
yep.
you how. And I was like, no,
Nope. I'm out.
no, yep.
Yep. Totally. All
I'm like,
right. Well, with that, we will go and continue on our little boozy spree outside of our Storytellers happy hour. With that, I hope everyone had a great time. If you have any ideas for like cool prompts, like put them in the chat because we do check the chat.
yeah.
Um,
And maybe also message us on IG.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
start
yeah.
putting my IG on here too so people can follow me.
Okay, cool.
I don't post a lot, but it'll
Nah,
be
it's all good.
fun.
Um, so we will see you next month and have a fabulous time. So cool.